There are uncertainties over the economic situation that await Nigerians and other residents in the West Africa country in 2025 after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presented the sum of 49.7 trillion Naira's 2025 Budget Appropriation Bill before the joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives of the National Assembly, with a revenue target of 34.82 trillion Nairas, hikes the dollar to Naira exchange rate by 100%. From 750 Nairas in 2024 to pegging amount of 1,500 Nairas in 2025. It would be recalled that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his first budget presentation as Nigeria President on November 29, 2023, pegged 750 Nairas to $1 as exchange rate for 2024. The president pegged the dollar rate at 750 Nairas when the foreign currency was fluctuating between 856 Nairas and 900 Nairas as at last quarter of 2023. The 750 Nairas dollar rate pegging for 2024 by the president saw the foreign currency currently exchanging between 1,656 Nairas and 1,700 Nairas, representing more than 100% negative increasement in the last quarter of 2024 when compared to the dollar rate as at December 2023. With the president pegging 2025 dollar rate at 1,500 Nairas, there are possibilities that the dollar may trade between 2,856 Nairas and 3,000 Nairas before the end of the last quarter of 2025. In line with the previous year's economic and exchange rate behavioral patterns and realities in the country. This shows there may be more harder and tougher times in 2025 for larger numbers of residents, both the middle class and the poor in the country, as the federal government showed more wider vision and quest for more revenue in the year ahead. The 2025 budget shows that more than 30% of the 49.7 trillion Naira will be used to service existing loans, with the government planning to borrow more new loans in 2025, sequel to the budget deficit of more than 13 trillion Naira. According to local media, the passage of the 2025 Appropriation Bill for second reading within 24 hours by the lawmakers marks an important milestone in the budgeting process. The bill will undergo further scrutiny and debate before its final passage. As the Senate resumes its plenary session in January, lawmakers are expected to delve deeper into the budget and make necessary adjustments so that it aligns with the country's development priorities. Details of the 2025 budget presentation, as reported by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, reads in full below. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu Wednesday in Abuja assured Nigerians of better days ahead as economic reforms begin to yield positive results, with noticeable signals in improved security, education, health care, and a globally acknowledged 3.4% GDP growth in third quarter of 2024. President Tinubu gave the assurance at the National Assembly during presentation of the 49.7 trillion Naira's 2025 Appropriation Bill to the joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives, attributing the successes recorded so far in economic reforms to the patience, resilience and tolerance of Nigerians in supporting the process. The President projected an expenditure bill of 49.7 trillion Nairas, which is 35% higher than the 28 trillion Naira's budget of 2024, with priority on education, healthcare and security. President Tinubu said the 2025 budget will focus on restoration, securing peace and rebuilding prosperity, which reflects the core vision of the renewed hope agenda of improving the livelihood of Nigerians through the strengthening of social and physical infrastructure, and ensuring inclusivity in reaching development goals. The 2025 budget proposal again reinforces our administration's roadmap to secure peace, prosperity, and hope for a greater future for our beloved nation. This budget, christened Budget of Restoration, Securing Peace, Rebuilding Prosperity, strikes at the very core of our renewed hope agenda and demonstrates our commitment to stabilizing the economy, improving lives, and repositioning our country for greater performance. The journey of economic renewal and institutional development, which we began 18 months ago as a nation, is very much underway. It is not a journey of our choosing but one we had to embark on for Nigeria to have a real chance at greatness. I thank every Nigerian for embarking on this journey of reforms and transformation with us. The road of reforms is now clearly upon us, and as the president of this blessed nation, I know this less traveled road has not been easy. That there have been difficulties and sacrifices. They will not be in vain, and we must keep faith with the process to arrive at our collectively desired destination, the president said. President Tinubu noted that the 2025 budget will focus on restoration and seek to consolidate on the key policies instituted to restructure the economy to boost human capital development, increase the volume of trade and investments, bolster oil and gas production, and get the manufacturing sector humming again and ultimately increase the competitiveness of our economy. He said the ongoing economic reforms would not be reversed. Rather, it will be strengthened to build on the gains of stimulating the economy to be more robust, equitable, predictable, and globally competitive. We do not intend to depart from this critical path to strengthen the Nigerian economy. Just as I believe in the resilience of our economy to withstand the current challenges, I also strongly believe in the resilience of the Nigerian people. Again, I summon the unstoppable Nigerian spirit to lead us on as we work to rebuild the fabric of our economy and existence. The improvements we witnessed in the 2024 budget have led us into the 2025 budget. The goals of advancing national security, creating economic opportunities, investing in our youthful population, infrastructure development, and national reorientation form the core of the 2025 budget. But more than that, this will lay a solid foundation for Nigeria's future growth trajectory, President Tinubu stated. The president told the lawmakers that the Nigerian economy was gradually rebounding. I report today that our economy is responding positively to stimulus. Our objective is to further stimulate the economy through the implementation of targeted fiscal stimulus packages through public expenditures and specific non-inflationary spending. The reforms we have instituted are beginning to yield results. Nigerians will soon experience a better and more functional economy. Global economic growth for the outgoing year 2024 was projected at 3.2%, and against predictions, our country made significant progress. Our economy grew by 3.46% in the third quarter of 2024, up from 2.54% in the third quarter of 2023. Our foreign reserves now stand at nearly $42 billion, providing a robust buffer against external shocks. Our rising exports are reflected in the current trade surplus, which now stands at 5.8 trillion naira, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. These clear results of gradual recovery, among others, reflect the resilience of our economy and the impact of deliberate policy choices we made from the outset, he added. On the performance of the 2024 budget, President Tinubu said remarkable milestones were achieved, with 14.55 trillion naira in revenue, meeting 75% of target as of the third quarter, while 21.60 trillion naira was recorded in expenditure, representing 85% of target in the third quarter. The president noted that outlook on 2025 was more positive for Nigerians. The 2025 budget seeks 2. Restore macroeconomic stability, enhance the business environment, foster inclusive growth, employment, and poverty reduction, promote equitable income distribution and human capital development. Our budgetary allocations reflect the administration's strategic priorities, especially in the implementation of the renewed Hope Agenda and its developmental objectives. In 2025, we are targeting 34.82 trillion naira in revenue to fund the budget. Government expenditure in the same year is projected to be 49.7 trillion naira, including 15.81 trillion naira for debt servicing. A total of 13.08 trillion naira, or 3.89% of GDP, will make up the budget deficit. This is an ambitious but necessary budget to secure our future, the president added. President Tinubu said the government would target inflation and bring it to 15%, improve foreign exchange from approximately 1,700 naira per US dollar to 1,500 naira, and a base crude oil production assumption of 2.06 million barrels per day (MBPD). Other projections for 2025, the president explained, will include reduced importation of petroleum products alongside increased export of finished petroleum products, bumper harvests, driven by enhanced security, reducing reliance on food imports, increased foreign exchange inflows through foreign portfolio investments, higher crude oil output and exports, coupled with a substantial reduction in upstream oil and gas production costs. The budget projects inflation will decline from the current rate of 34.6% to 15% next year, while the exchange rate will improve from approximately 1,700 naira per US dollar to 1,500 naira, and a base crude oil production assumption of 2.06 million barrels per day (MBPD), he said. President Tinubu said the priority areas for the 2025 budget allocations are defense and security, 4.91 trillion nairas, infrastructure, 4.06 trillion nairas, health, 2.48 trillion nairas, and education, 3.52 trillion nairas. Our administration has so far disbursed 34 billion naira to over 300,000 students via the Nigeria Education Loan Fund, (NELFUND). In the 2025 budget, we have made provision for 826.90 billion naira for infrastructure development in the educational sector. This provision also includes those for the Universal Basic Education, UBEC, and the 9 new higher educational institutions, he noted. In his remarks, the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, thanked the president for his bold and courageous efforts in rebuilding the Nigerian economy, assuring that the lawmakers will remain selfless and patriotic in supporting the reforms, particularly at the grassroots. Describing President Tinubu as a national treasure, Senator Akpabio commended the president for improvement in security, international recognition and treatment of Nigerians with more dignity, facilitating student loans, reduced debt servicing, social security for the less privileged, and signing of the minimum wage bill with promptness. He said those critical of the proposed tax reforms should create more time to study the details of the bill before the National Assembly. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, said the tax reform will ensure equitable, efficient collection and utilization of revenue and ensure more consideration for the underprivileged and vulnerable Nigerians. He said the lawmakers would continue to support the president to realize his dream for the country.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
European Commission, EC President von der Leyen on Tuesday visited Turkey President Recep Erdogan and discussed additional €1 billion for the settlement of Syria refugees in Turkey days after Israeli forces patrolled inside a recently seized demilitarized zone along the border with Syria, as Tel Aviv announced plans to double the number of Israelis living in the part of the Golan Heights Israel captured from Syria in 1967, with reports of hostilities between US-backed Kurdish group and Turkey-backed Islamist group in recent days in Kurdish towns, which United Nations Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, said on Tuesday there have been conflicts in Syria in the last 2 weeks, and the conflicts among the rebels, if left uncontrolled, may be catastrophic. European Commission, in a news release on Tuesday, reported that the Commission President visited Turkey and discussed additional €1 billion for 2024 to support Turkey's efforts to host Syria refugees. The news release reads in details thus: "Thank you, President Erdogan, for your warm welcome to Ankara today. Let me start with our discussion on Syria. The collapse of the Assad regime offers new hope to the Syrian people, but it equally comes with risks. The situation on the ground remains extremely volatile, so we are closely monitoring the developments. The Syrian people deserve a peaceful transition, one that preserves their country's territorial integrity and sovereignty, one that upholds state institutions, and one that reflects the aspirations of the Syrian people in all their diversity. So, it means that national unity must be respected, and minorities must be protected. This is aligned with the principles agreed by the foreign ministers meeting in Aqaba. Europe is ready to do its part to support Syria at this critical juncture. Allow me to mention some points where the European Union will be active right away. Our top diplomat returns to Damascus. We already have a European presence in Damascus through our humanitarian teams. Indeed, we have always maintained our presence in Syria to support those in need while respecting the principles of no contact, no cooperation, no funding to the Assad regime. But now we have to step up and continue our direct engagement with HTS and other factions. We will enhance our engagement in early recovery, including basic services like electricity and water, and infrastructure. We have increased our humanitarian aid to more than 160 million euros for this year alone. And we have launched a humanitarian air bridge, and the first goods are expected to arrive this week. Europe is already Syria's biggest donor. Since 2011, our annual Syria conferences have mobilized over 33 billion euros. We must continue this support, with a new focus on reconstruction. This would be a step-by-step approach. And we would need to start a discussion on sanctions relief. But this can only happen if real progress on a peaceful transition is seen on the ground. Indeed, the fall of the Assad regime gives hope to the Syrian people. The hope of returning to their homes and rebuilding their lives. It is the most natural feeling there is. However, the lack of predictability demands utmost caution. Therefore, one thing is very clear: all returns must be voluntary, safe, and dignified. We are working with UNHCR to make sure that the necessary conditions are met. President Erdogan, Turkey has an essential role to play in stabilizing the region. Together, we must also remain vigilant against terrorism. The risk of a Daesh resurgence, particularly in eastern Syria, is real. We cannot let this happen. Turkey's legitimate security concerns must be addressed. At the same time, it is important to allow all Syrians, including all minorities, to be safe. Today, we also discussed the relationship between Turkey and the European Union. Our relationship is as rich as it is complex. But one thing is clear: it is moving forward. For good reasons. One of my first travels at the beginning of my second mandate brings me here to Ankara. Our economic relationship is stronger than ever. The numbers speak for themselves. Trade between us hit a record high of 206 billion euros last year. The European Union is Turkey's largest trade and investment partner. Our intention is to strengthen this further. We launched a new high-level dialogue on trade last June, and we will now start a high-level dialogue on the economy. And we are also exploring opportunities for renewed engagement with the European Investment Bank in Turkey. I also look forward to resuming discussions on a modernized customs union. We both have a lot to gain here. However, as we discussed, progress will require stronger efforts. Specifically, we need to address a number of trade barriers. I asked my Commissioner Maros Sefcovic to work on this immediately together with you. We also discussed the need to prevent the circumvention of our sanctions against Russia. And of course it is also important to re-establish talks with Cyprus, within the UN framework. I want to acknowledge that Turkey has consistently shouldered the responsibility of hosting millions of Syrian refugees over the years. And we have stood by you in this effort. Since 2011, the EU has provided nearly 10 billion euros to support refugees and the hosting efforts of local communities. I am very pleased to announce today that an additional €1 billion for 2024 is on its way. This will support, among others, healthcare and education of refugees in Turkey. It will continue to contribute to migration and border management, including voluntary returns of Syrian refugees. And as things evolve on the ground, we can adapt this €1 billion to the new needs that might occur in Syria. Turkey continues to be a key partner in managing migration along the Eastern Mediterranean route. It is crucial that we work together on our shared priorities and deepen our cooperation on border management, the fight against migrant smuggling, and on visas. There is a lot of work ahead of us, and I look forward to continuing our good cooperation, both in supporting a Syrian-led and Syrian-owned political transition and in deepening the relationship between Turkey, as a candidate country, and the European Union. Together, we can achieve a lot for our people, for the region, and beyond. European Commission news release ends in quote. Reuters on Tuesday reported that an international war crimes prosecutor said evidence from mass graves in Syria exposed a state-run machinery of death under toppled leader Bashar al-Assad, with over 100,000 tortured and murdered since 2013. Speaking after visiting two mass grave sites in the towns of Qutayfa and Najaf near Damascus, former U.S. War Crimes Ambassador at Large, Stephen Rapp told Reuters, "We certainly have more than 100,000 people that were disappeared into and tortured to death in this machine. I don't have much doubt about those kinds of numbers given what we've seen in these mass graves. We really haven't seen anything quite like this since the Nazis," said Rapp, who led prosecutions at the Rwanda and Sierra Leone war crimes tribunals and is working with Syrian civil society to document war crimes evidence and is helping to prepare for any eventual trials. From the secret police who disappeared people from their streets and homes, to the jailers and interrogators who stalked and tortured them to death, to the truck drivers and bulldozer drivers who hid their bodies, thousands of people were working in the system of killing, Rapp said. Adding, "We are talking about a system of stealth terror, which became a machinery of death." AFP also reported on Tuesday that a UN envoy has warned that Syria's protracted conflict has not ended yet, even as victorious Islamist-led rebels stepped up contacts with governments that deemed ousted President Bashar al-Assad a pariah. Assad fled Syria just over a week ago following a lightning offensive spearheaded by the Islamist Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, more than 13 years after his crackdown on democracy protests precipitated one of the deadliest wars of the century. However, the United Nations Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, said on Tuesday, there have been significant hostilities in the last 2 weeks, before a ceasefire was brokered. I am seriously concerned about reports of military escalation. Such an escalation could be catastrophic, said Pedersen, referring to fighting between the US-backed, Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces (SDF) and Turkish-backed groups who have captured several Kurdish towns in recent weeks. Washington later announced it had brokered an extension to the ceasefire in the flashpoint town of Manbij and was seeking a broader understanding with Ankara. The Manbij truce is extended through the end of the week, and we will, obviously, look to see that ceasefire extended as far as possible into the future, State Department spokesman Matthew Miller told reporters. That came amid fears of an assault by Turkey on the Kurdish-held border town of Kobani, also known as Al-Arab. SDF leader Mazlum Abdi proposed in a post on social media platform X the establishment of a demilitarized zone in Kobani under U.S. supervision. Washington regards the SDF as an important ally in its war against the Islamic State group in Syria, although the new Damascus authorities have made clear their opposition to continued Kurdish self-rule in the northeast. The HTS military chief said in an AFP interview on Tuesday that Kurdish-held areas of Syria would be integrated under the country's new leadership. The Kurdish people are one of the components of the Syrian people. Syria will not be divided and there will be no federal entities, said Muraf Abu Khazra, known by his nom de Gore Abu Hassan al-Hamawi. Abu Khazra also called on the international community to find a solution to repeated Israeli strikes on military targets and its incursion into the UN-patrolled buffer zone on the Golan Heights. Israel has carried out hundreds of strikes on Syrian military assets since Assad's overthrow in what it says is a bid to prevent them falling into hostile hands. Israeli troops also occupied strategic positions in a UN-patrolled buffer zone in a move UN Chief Antonio Guterres described as a breach of the 1974 armistice. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a security briefing on Tuesday on Mountain Hermon, Syria's highest peak, one of the areas of the buffer zone that Israel seized this month. Netanyahu visited outposts at the summit of Mountain Hermon for the first time since they were seized by the military, Katz's office said, AFP report ends in quote.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Men of the Nigeria police force have raided series of criminal hideouts across the country, arrested 128 suspects after the police operatives had earlier arrested armed robbers in Anambra State and recovered over 129 billion naira counterfeit currencies from suspected criminals in Kano State ahead of the 2024-2025 Christmas and New Year celebrations in the country. Details of the news reports are presented verbatim as reported by the Force Public Relations Officer, Olumiwa Adejobi below. As the festive season approaches, the Nigeria Police Force remains vigilant and proactive, ramping up its efforts to ensure the safety and security of all citizens. In a series of proactive measures, the force has intensified its operations, leading to numerous successful raids, arrests and recoveries. In line with the directive of the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Adeolu Egbetokun to in place efficient security measures against crime during this festive season, operatives of the Nigeria Police Force in several state commands across the country have carried out intensive patrols and raids, successfully dislodging and arresting scores of hoodlums and recovering dangerous weapons. Operatives of the Lagos State Police Command on the 14th of December 2024 carried out several raids of criminal hideouts in the Isolo axis of the state, successfully apprehending 43 suspects and recovering various exhibits including large quantities of cannabis, daggers, swords and several fetish items. In the same vein, on the 15th of December 2024, police operatives of the Lagos State Command arrested one Charles Oji, male, at Isheri Osun, Lagos State, who tried to steal a Toyota Hilux from where it was parked. Upon his arrest and a subsequent search, 7 different Toyota car keys were recovered from him. Operatives of the Nigeria Police Force continue to demonstrate unwavering commitment to safeguarding lives and property by diligently increasing vigilance and executing coordinated security measures in various regions across the country. This concerted effort is notably observed in states like Kaduna, Zamfara, Taraba, Edo, Delta, Benue, and Niger, among other critical areas. As we enter the final stretch of the festivities, the Nigeria Police Force assures citizens that it will continue its mission to deter crime and protect the lives and property of all Nigerians. The force remains unwavering in this mission to provide a safe environment during the holiday season, as members of the public are urged to stay vigilant and report any suspicious activities to the authorities. As we approach the Yuletide festivities, the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Adeolu Egbetokun, has assured the good citizens of Nigeria of the emplacement of intensive security measures to ensure the safety and protection of lives and property. To this effect, the IGP has directed the immediate deployment of adequate personnel to strategic locations, key areas and identified hotspots across all states, an initiative aimed at curbing traffic, highway robberies, and other criminal activities during this period of increased mobility, public gatherings and celebrations. The IGP's directive includes the mobilization of police officers to highways, major roads, urban centers, and recreational centers nationwide. Officers will be strategically positioned to deter crimes via increased police presence and visibility on major highways and roads prone to criminal activities, particularly highway robberies, which tend to spike during festive seasons. In line with the IGP's commitment to ensuring public safety, the Nigeria Police Force has already made significant headway in combating these crimes. On the 10th of December 2024, police operatives attached to the Lagos State Command arrested 4 suspected robbers identified as Akiu Alabi, male, Adewale Sobeson, male, Emmanuel Izayagbe, male, and Francis Okoko, male. The suspects, upon their arrest, confessed to being members of a robbery syndicate operating around the coastal axis in the state. Similarly, on the 6th of December 2024, police operatives of the Anambra State Command trailed and arrested a suspected armed robber identified as Miracle Makaloi, male, at Awka. Upon his arrest and subsequent interrogation, the suspect led the operatives to his apartment, where during a search, 3 AK-47 rifles were recovered. The Nigeria Police Force stands firm in its commitment to providing a safe environment during and beyond the Yuletide season. With ongoing proactive measures, including enhanced patrols, community engagement, and a specific focus on public safety, the force is dedicated to ensuring that the festive season is celebrated without the shadow of crimes. While urging citizens to cooperate with heightened police presence which promises to be professional and law-abiding, the IGP further encourages citizens to remain vigilant and report all suspicious activities to the police and other law enforcement agencies. The Nigeria Police Force, under the leadership of the 22nd Indigenous Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Adeolu Egbetokun, in its relentless effort to tackle all forms of crimes and criminality, continues to mark giant strides in the fight against crime in all spheres. Recently, in Kano, the police successfully recovered the sum of 129,542,823,000 Nairas in counterfeit currencies, with a breakdown of 3,366,000 in counterfeit US dollars, 51,970 in counterfeit CFA franc, and 1,443,000 in counterfeit Naira. This momentous achievement was recorded on the 8th of December 2024 at Jiwale, Kano State, where police operatives acting on credible intelligence accosted one Nura Ibrahim, male, and upon a conducted search, discovered 392,000 Nairas counterfeit notes, 7,800 US dollars counterfeit notes, and 5 different ATM cards. Further investigation led to the arrest of his accomplices, Mohammed Muntari, male, and Usman Abdullahi, male, as well as the recovery of the other counterfeit currencies. In another development, intensifying the efforts against gun running and the proliferation of arms in the country, the Nigeria Police Force on the 9th of December 2024 arrested 3 suspected gun runners identified as Buhari Suleiman, male, Jamil Yakubu, male, and Aliyu Abdullahi, male, along the Kaduna-Kano Expressway, Kaduna State. The suspects were apprehended after the police operatives noticed their suspicious activities and approached them to question them. A subsequent search was conducted, which led to the recovery of 216 rounds of 9mm live ammunition and 1 round of AK-47 ammunition. Similarly, on the 8th of December 2024, police operatives in Kebbi State rescued 36 victims of kidnapping along Mairerai, Bena Road in Danko, Wasagu local government area who were returning from their respective farms. As a follow-up to the rescue, police operatives have visited the community to engage its members, debrief the rescued victims, and assure the people of its continuous readiness to ensure their safety and security. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Adeolu Egbetokun once again reiterates the commitment of the Nigeria Police Force to combating all forms of crime and criminality, especially economic saboteurs. The force remains vigilant, steadfast, and unforgiving towards those who would threaten the national security and economic progress of our dear country.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Ousted President of Syria, Bashar al-Assad has issued a first press statement since he fled to Moscow, the Russian capital, after the fall of Damascus, saying he never abandoned his fighters, that the opposition rebels closed in on him while he was inside Russian military base in Syria, and the leadership of Russian military ordered his evacuation as the Moscow army base came under heavy drones attack. According to Bashar al-Assad, he did not leave Syria on Sunday morning, that he was hiding in the Russian military base till evening when he was eventually evacuated. The deposed Syrian president has defended his role and denied planning his departure as armed opposition fighters closed in on Damascus earlier this month. A statement said to be written by al-Assad and released on the Syrian presidency's Telegram channel on Monday presented an account of how and why the former president fled Syria. First, my departure from Syria was neither planned nor did it occur during the final hours of the battles, as some have claimed. On the contrary, I remained in Damascus, carrying out my duties until the early hours of Sunday, December 8, 2024. The statement added that as rebel fighters, who al-Assad described as terrorist forces, entered the capital, he moved to a Russian base on the coastal city of Latakia to oversee combat operations. Adding, the Russian military base came under drone attacks from armed opposition fighters. With no viable means of leaving the base, Moscow requested that the base's command arrange an immediate evacuation to Russia on the evening of Sunday, the 8th of December. This took place a day after the fall of Damascus, following the collapse of the final military positions and the resulting paralysis of all remaining state institutions. We are yet to independently verify the statement posted on the Syria President Verified Telegram channel's account. Al-Assad has not made any media appearances since he was granted asylum with his family by President Vladimir Putin-led Russia. Groups led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, had launched a lightning offensive from the northwestern province of Idlib in November, taking city after city from government forces with little resistance. Reuters reported that the vault of Syria's central bank holds nearly 26 tons of gold, the same amount it had at the start of its bloody civil war in 2011. Even after the chaotic fall of Bashar al-Assad's despotic regime, the media cited 4 people familiar with the situation. But the country has only a small amount of foreign currency reserves in cash, the same people said. Syria's gold reserves stood at 25.8 tons in June 2011, according to the World Gold Council, which cites the Central Bank of Syria as its data source. That is worth $2.2 billion at current market prices, according to Reuters calculations, Reuters reported on Monday. Last Monday, rescuers from the Syrian White Helmets said they were searching for secret doors or basements in Sadnaya prison, looking for any detainees who might be trapped. More prisoners looking malnourished were seen in videos being helped out. We are working with all our energy to reach a new hope, and we must be prepared for the worst, the organization said in a statement. Ida Taha, aged 65, said she had been roaming the streets like a madwoman in search of her brother, who was arrested in 2012. She said she went to Sadnaya, where she believes some prisoners are still underground. The prison has 3 or 4 underground floors, Taha said. They say that the doors won't open because they don't have the proper codes. We've been oppressed long enough. We want our children back, she added. Assad and members of his family arrived in the city on Sunday, a Kremlin source told the TASS news agency last Monday as reported. The source said, Assad and his family members have arrived in Moscow. Russia, for humanitarian reasons, has granted them asylum. Mr. Assad left the Syrian capital of Damascus after his government fell following a lightning offensive by anti-regime forces across the country, bringing his 24-year rule to an end. He left after giving orders for there to be a peaceful transfer of power, the Russian Foreign Ministry said last Monday. As Assad fled, footage circulating on social media showed families ransacking presidential palaces in Damascus, with some taking selfies in the grand settings, as thousands celebrated in the streets. The Syrian regime had faced a battle on three fronts: Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, from the north, the Southern Front, and a Kurdish group in the east. Syrian rebels, made up of the various opposition groups, said they were working to transition power to a new governing body with full executive powers. The Great Syrian Revolution has moved from the stage of struggle to overthrow the Assad regime to the struggle to build a Syria together that befits the sacrifices of its people, the coalition said in a statement, describing events as a new birth for Great Syria. HTS leader Abu Mohammed al-Jolani, who led the insurgency, declared, "The future is ours," in a statement read out on Syrian state TV. He said there was no room for turning back, and his group was determined to continue on the path it started in 2011. He later addressed a crowd inside the sprawling Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, where he described the fall of Assad as a victory to the Islamic nation. "We had last Sunday reported that the United States of America, US-backed Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, and Turkey-backed Islam-led Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, have pushed out Iran and Russia-backed President Bashar al-Assad from Syria, with US President-elect Donald Trump calling President Joe Biden and other government officials at the White House warmongers trying to cause World War III, distancing USA from the civil crisis in Damascus." Local media reported with videos that Christians in Damascus gathered at a church Saturday night to pray for guidance as the opposition Islamic and Kurdish rebels closed in on Damascus. Some of the local media added that the fall of Damascus could mark the end of a 2,000-year-old Christian presence in the city. On Sunday early morning, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad boarded a plane and left Damascus for an unknown destination, two senior army officers told Reuters, as rebels said they had entered the capital with no sign of army deployments. Syria's army command also notified officers that President Bashar al-Assad's rule ended following a lightning rebel offensive. A Syrian officer who was informed of the move stated, according to Reuters. With Syrian rebels saying, Damascus is now free of Assad. According to unverified information, the plane that might have been carrying Assad out of Damascus had gone into sharp descent and disappeared from the radars. There has been no official information, but a check showed that as at on Sunday early morning, a Syrian airplane took off from Damascus airport around the time the capital was reported to have been taken by rebels, according to data from the flight radar website. The aircraft initially flew towards Syria's coastal region, a stronghold of Assad's Alawite sect, but then made an abrupt U-turn and flew in the opposite direction for a few minutes before disappearing off the map. Details and verbatim of the press statement issued by the ousted Syria President Bashar al-Assad reads below in full. First, my departure from Syria was neither planned nor did it occur during the final hours of the battles, as some have claimed. On the contrary, I remained in Damascus, carrying out my duties until the early hours of Sunday the 8th of December 2024. As terrorist forces infiltrated Damascus, I moved to Latakia in coordination with our Russian allies to oversee combat operations. Upon arrival at the Memim airbase that morning, it became clear that our forces had completely withdrawn from all battle lines and that the last army positions had fallen. As the field situation in the area continued to deteriorate, the Russian military base itself came under intensified attack by drone strikes. With no viable means of leaving the base, Moscow requested that the base's command arrange an immediate evacuation to Russia on the evening of Sunday the 8th of December. This took place a day after the fall of Damascus, following the collapse of the final military positions and the resulting paralysis of all remaining state institutions. At no point during these events did I consider stepping down or seeking refuge, nor was such a proposal made by any individual or party. The only course of action was to continue fighting against the terrorist onslaught. With the expansion of terrorism in Syria, and its arrival in the capital Damascus on the evening of Saturday, December 7, 2024, questions began to be raised about the fate and location of the president, amidst a torrent of confusion and stories far from the truth, which constituted support for the process of installing international terrorism concealed as a Syrian liberation revolution. At a critical historical moment in the life of our nation, when truth should have a place, there is something that needs to be clarified through a brief statement. These circumstances and the subsequent complete cessation of communication for security reasons did not allow for a statement to be made, and its brief points do not replace the narration of the details of everything that happened, which I will address at a later time, when the opportunity arises. First of all, I did not leave the country in a planned manner as was rumored, nor did I leave it during the last hours of the battles, but rather I remained in Damascus following up on my responsibilities until the early morning hours of Sunday, December 8, 2024. With the expansion of terrorism inside Damascus, I moved in coordination with my Russian friends to Latakia to follow up on the combat operations from there. Upon arriving at the main airbase in the morning, it became clear that the forces had withdrawn from all the battle lines and that the last army positions had fallen, with the deterioration of the field situation in that area increasing, and the attack on the Russian military base itself being escalated by drones. In light of the impossibility of leaving the base in any direction, Moscow asked the base leadership to work on securing immediate evacuation to Russia on the evening of Sunday, December 8th, the day after the fall of Damascus, and after the fall of the last military positions and the subsequent paralysis of the rest of the state institutions. During those events, the issue of asylum or resignation was not raised by me or by any person or party, and the only option presented was to continue fighting in defense of the terrorist attack. In this context, I emphasize that whoever, since the first day of the war, refused to trade his country's salvation for personal salvation, or to bargain with his people with various offers and temptations, is the same person who stood with the officers and soldiers of his army on the front lines, dozens of meters away from the terrorists in the hottest and most dangerous hotbeds of conflict, and is the same person who did not leave during the most difficult years of the war and remained with his family and people to face terrorism under bombardment and the danger of terrorists storming the capital more than once during 14 years of war. And whoever did not abandon the known Syrian resistance in Palestine and Lebanon, and did not betray his allies who stood with him, cannot be the same person who abandons his people to whom he belongs, or betrays them and his army. I have never been a person who seeks positions on a personal level, but rather I considered myself the owner of a national project that derived its support from a people who believed in it. I carried the certainty of the will of that people and their ability to preserve their state and defend its institutions and choices until the last moment. With the fall of the state into the hands of terrorism, and the loss of the ability to provide anything, the position becomes empty and meaningless, and there is no meaning to remaining responsible in it. This does not mean in any way abandoning the authentic national affiliation to Syria and its people, a fixed affiliation that is not changed by position or circumstance, affiliation filled with hope that Syria will return free and independent.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Ambrose Owuru, Hope Democratic Party, HDP presidential candidate in the previous general elections in Nigeria, a legal practitioner who was in 2013 arrested and prosecuted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, over 66 million naira land scam, has been fined 5 million naira by the Nigeria Apex Court, the Supreme Court of Justice, for filing frivolous charges against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, seeking the West Africa country president's removal from office. EFCC had on July 31, 2013 arrested Barrister Ambrose Owuru over an allegation of obtaining the sum of 66 million naira from one Ikechukwu Eze under false pretense. The complainant alleged that sometimes in March 2011, he paid the sum of 60 million naira through Sky Bank, Olu Obasanjo Road Branch, Port Harcourt, to Barrister Owuru for a property located at Anzamiro Street, Amadi Flat, Port Harcourt. In the process of taking possession of the property, it was discovered that a portion had been sold to another person. At this point, Barrister Owuru allegedly asked for another 6 million naira to settle the other buyer, one Chief Austin Omaya, which Eze allegedly obliged him. Since then, every attempt to take possession or develop the said property met with resistance. Upon receipt of the petition and commencement of investigation, the commission invited the suspect severally, but he refused to honor the invitations, which culminated in his arrest, EFCC stated in its press release issued first week of August 2013. Also in August 2013, EFCC issued another press release, stating that a federal high court sitting in Port Harcourt has granted the former presidential candidate of the Hope Democratic Party, Chief Ambrose Owuru, bail in the sum of 10 million naira, and one surety who must be a lawyer of 30 years post-call experience. Justice Suleiman Aliyu also ordered that the surety must swear an affidavit of means while the accused undertake to be present in court throughout his trial. Owuru was arraigned on August 2, 2013 by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, on a 5-count charge that borders on uttering, forgery and obtaining money by false pretense. He allegedly obtained the sum of 66 million naira from one Ikechukwu Eze through a phony land deal. One of the counts read, that you, Ambrose Owuru, on or about the 7th day of March 2011 at Port Harcourt, Rivers State, within the jurisdiction of this honorable court, with intent to defraud, did obtain the sum of 60 million naira from Ikechukwu Eze on the pretense that you have sold to him four plots of land situated at plot 44A, Amadi Layout, Port Harcourt, a pretext which you knew to be false, and thereby committed an offense contrary to Section 11A of the Advance Fee Fraud and Other Fraud-Related Offences Act, 2006, and punishable under Section 1(3) of the same Act. Another count reads, that you, Ambrose Owuru, on or about the 7th day of March 2011 at Port Harcourt, Rivers State, within the jurisdiction of this honorable court, did utter a forged certificate of occupancy, dated 20th of March 1990, purportedly issued by the Rivers State Lands and Survey, covering plot 44A Amadi Layout, Port Harcourt, and thereby committed an offense contrary to Section 12(c) of the Miscellaneous Offences Act Cap M17 of the Revised Edition, Law of the Federation of Nigeria, 2007, and punishable under Section 1(2) of the same Act. He pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Justice Aliyu adjourned the case till October 10, 2013 for commencement of trial. The court also ordered that the accused person be remanded in the EFCC custody until he perfects his bail conditions. Justice B.O. Quadri of the Federal High Court, sitting in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, on November 11, 2015, overruled a preliminary objection filed by G.I. Abibu, San, in a case involving a former presidential candidate of the Hope Democratic Party, HDP, Chief Ambrose Owuru, who is being prosecuted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for a phony land deal to the tune of 66 million naira. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has dismissed a lawsuit seeking President Bola Tinubu's removal, deeming it frivolous. The Apex Court imposed a fine of 5 million naira in the suit filed by Hope Democratic Party's presidential candidate Ambrose Owuru, over President Bola Tinubu alleged CIA and drug involvement. Owuru had petitioned the Supreme Court to remove President Bola Tinubu from office. Owuru alleged that Tinubu's alleged affiliation with the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, renders him unfit for the presidency. Additionally, he cited Tinubu's prior forfeiture of $460,000 to the U.S. government in a drug-related case as grounds for disqualification. He petitioned the Supreme Court to invoke Section 157 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, and consequently declare President Tinubu unfit to occupy the nation's highest office. Owuru based his prayers on the allegation that President Tinubu is beholden to foreign authorities, thereby compromising his ability to effectively discharge his duties. Furthermore, in suit number SC CV 667/2023, Owuru joined former President Muhammadu Buhari as a respondent, positing that the latter's tenure was unconstitutional. As the presidential candidate of the Hope Democratic Party, HDP, recently re-registered by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Owuru contended that he was the legitimate victor of the 2019 presidential election. Owuru alleged that Buhari usurped his mandate and illicitly governed the country for 8 years. He recounted that an earlier suit filed before the Supreme Court, seeking Buhari's removal, was inadvertently dismissed due to a scheduling mix-up. This technical oversight, Owuru argued, thwarted justice and perpetuated Buhari's purportedly illegal occupation of the presidency. He urged the apex court that after disqualifying President Tinubu, it should declare him president and order his immediate inauguration. This, he argued, would enable him to reclaim his purportedly usurped mandate. The respondents in the suit include President Tinubu, former President Muhammadu Buhari, the Attorney General of the Federation, and the Independent National Electoral Commission. Nigeria President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called on all members of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to emulate the last Ghana presidential elections, with some Nigerians also calling on the president to ensure he allows the country electoral body, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to be free from being forced to corrupt the upcoming Nigeria 2027 presidential election. The ECOWAS bloc also gave its member countries, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, currently under military rule, a window of exit from the ECOWAS bloc in line with the request of the three countries which have been on a loggerhead with other member countries of the West Africa community since coup after coup in the region. The approval came after some days President Bola Tinubu told German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier that ECOWAS would handle the three countries' return to the group with wisdom. The approval of the country's exit was made public on Sunday by ECOWAS Commission President Dr. Omar Al-Toure at the end of the 66th Ordinary Summit of the Authority of Heads of State and Government and ECOWAS Commission. Toure said the three countries will formally cease to be members of ECOWAS on January 29, 2025, in accordance with Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty. Following their notifications to withdraw, the regional bloc outlined a transitional period from January 29 to July 29, 2025, keeping its doors open for the countries to reconsider their decision. Acknowledging the diplomatic efforts led by Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, Togo's President, Foreign Assembly, and ECOWAS Chairman Bola Tinubu, the bloc emphasized its commitment to fostering dialogue. Toure said the authority had extended the mandates of Nasingbe and failed to continue mediation efforts throughout the transition period. He said ECOWAS, during the transitional phase, would focus on preparing for the separation. ECOWAS also tasked its Commission President with initiating withdrawal formalities after January 29, 2025, and developing a contingency plan to address political and economic relations with the departing nations. Additionally, the ECOWAS Council of Ministers would convene an extraordinary session in mid-2025 to finalize separation modalities and the contingency plan. Torres stated, "The part of the communique I'll be reading relates to the decision of the Republic of Mali, the Republic of Niger and Burkina Faso to withdraw from ECOWAS. After deliberations, Their Excellencies, members of the Authority of ECOWAS Heads of State and Government, commend the exemplary diplomatic engagement of His Excellency, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, President of the Republic of Senegal, and His Excellency Foreign Assembly, President of the Togo's Republic, and the diplomatic efforts of the Chairman of Authority, His Excellency, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and other individual member states towards these three countries. The authority takes note of the notification by Burkina Faso, Republic of Mali and the Republic of Niger of their decision to withdraw from ECOWAS. The authority acknowledges that in accordance with the provisions of Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty, the three countries will officially cease to be members of ECOWAS from the 29th of January 2025. The authority decides to set the period from the 29th of January 2025 to the 29th of July 2025 as a transitional period and to keep ECOWAS doors open to the three countries during the transition period. In this regard, the authority extends the mandate of President Nassingbe of Togo and President Faye of Senegal to continue their mediation role up to the end of the transition period to bring the three member countries back to ECOWAS. Without prejudice for the spirit of the opening, the authority directs the President of the Commission to launch withdrawal formalities after the deadline of the 29th of January 2025, and to draw up a contingency plan covering various areas. The authority directs the Council of Ministers to convene an extraordinary session during the second quarter of 2025 to consider and adopt both separation modalities and the contingency plan covering political and economic relations between ECOWAS and the Republic of Niger, the Republic of Mali and Burkina Faso. In January, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger announced their decision to withdraw from ECOWAS. They accused the regional bloc of deviating from its foundational ideals and succumbing to external influences, particularly criticizing the imposition of sanctions aimed at reversing their respective coups. The decision followed a series of military takeovers, Mali in 2020 and 2021, Burkina Faso in 2022, and Niger in 2023, each leading to suspensions from ECOWAS and strained relations with the organization. At the meeting, President Bola Tinubu urged leaders in West Africa to draw inspiration from Ghana's recent peaceful elections as a model of democratic maturity and commitment to national unity. Bayo Onanuga, Special Advisor to the Nigeria President on Information and Strategy in a news release on Sunday, said President Tinubu lauded President Nana Akufo-Addo and the people of Ghana for the resounding success of their recent presidential and parliamentary elections, setting a high standard for the region. I urge all of us in the region to learn from this good democratic practice and prioritize our country's national unity to ensure political stability of the region so that this manner of peaceful transition becomes the culture of democracy not only in West Africa but also in the entire Africa continent, he stated. Despite the challenges of interrupted democratic governance in some West African countries, the region has continued to record democratic gains. Just a week ago, on December 7, 2024, presidential and parliamentary elections took place in Ghana, the second largest democracy in our region. One of the leading candidates, who happens to be the incumbent vice president, His Excellency Mahamudu Bawumia, together with the leadership of the ruling party, New Patriotic Party (NPP), conceded defeat and accepted the outcome of the presidential election by congratulating the president-elect, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama of National Democratic Congress (NDC) for his victory, even before the official announcement of the election results. This gesture, as it happened in Nigeria in 2015, demonstrates political maturity and respect for the will of the people of Ghana. President Tinubu praised President Akufo-Addo for his exceptional leadership and unwavering commitment to ECOWAS during his two-year term, describing him as a formidable Pan-Africanist. President Tinubu also congratulated the government and people of Senegal on their successful parliamentary elections. He praised Ghana's Foreign Minister, Shirley Ayoko Botchwey, for painstakingly leading the ECOWAS Ministerial Committee of the Reform. He wished her a successful tenure in her new role as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. In his second term as ECOWAS chair, President Tinubu highlighted achievements from his first term, including strides in regional integration, economic growth, conflict resolution, and counterterrorism efforts. He said the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS, and Common External Tariff, CET, have strengthened trade and economic cooperation. Similarly, regional infrastructure projects such as the West African Gas Pipeline, the West Africa Power Pool, and modernizing key border posts with advanced equipment and joint border operations utilizing state-of-the-art technology have significantly enhanced connectivity and promoted greater regional integration. Furthermore, our efforts in stabilizing our region through peacekeeping missions currently in the Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, as well as previous operations in Liberia and Sierra Leone, have demonstrated our capacity to act decisively in the face of adversity. President Tinubu said the ECOWAS Regional Action Plan on the fight against terrorism has provided a comprehensive framework to combat violent extremism and enhance regional security. As ECOWAS nears its 50th anniversary in 2025, President Tinubu urged member states to recommit to the bloc's founding ideals of economic integration, peace, and prosperity. As a regional community, we must maintain our fundamental responsibility to protect our citizens and create an enabling environment where they can prosper. As leaders, we know that security is not a luxury but a necessity. Equally, enhancing the living standards of our people is not an aspiration but an obligation, he said. The presidents of Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, and Senegal attended in person alongside the Vice President of Sierra Leone, the Finance Minister of the Benin Republic, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Togo, and the Ambassador of Cape Verde to Nigeria. The President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Toure, commended Nigeria for paying 100% of its community levy for 2023 and substantial remittances for 2024, reflecting Nigeria's leadership and commitment under President Tinubu. For the first time in 19 years, Nigeria has paid 100% of its community levy from 2023. I am therefore pleased to announce that on Friday, December 13, 2024, Nigeria paid 85 billion naira and $54 million, representing 100% of the 2023 levy and the 2024 levy up to July 2024. We all agree that this payment underscores the leadership and commitment of President Tinubu, the government and the people of Nigeria to our community. At a more personal level, it represents confidence in the management I have been privileged to lead since 2022. He encouraged other member states to meet their financial commitments diligently. The presidential news release ends in quote. Some Nigerians took to the Facebook page of Bayo Onanuga to express their feelings over the call made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that ECOWAS leaders should learn from Ghana's recent presidential election, and one of the responders, Omotosho Oluwabusi Oladotin Emmanuel, said, "They are Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu." With all due respect and in the spirit of patriotism, if Nigerians should learn from the last Ghana's presidential election and also emulate the Ghana's democratic practice following a successful presidential and parliamentary elections in the country, by her electoral commission just as you have rightly urged the ECOWAS leaders to follow suit, then you will definitely be massively rejected in the 2027 Nigeria's presidential election by the well-meaning Nigerian citizens, provided the INEC chairman would not use his good office to compromise or manipulate the election results of the concerned, dying, frustrated, impoverished, suffering, and suppressed Nigerian citizens. Honestly speaking, dear Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you have performed woefully as the Nigeria's president in the last 1.5 years in office after you have grabbed power with no clear direction, purpose, vision, and effective leadership of your renewed hope, with a view to delivering significant and tangible dividends of democracy for the masses. However, as far as I am concerned, the only thing that would make you win the 2027 Nigerian presidential election is for INEC Nigeria to rig the election in your favor again, against the respect for or wish of the good people of Nigeria. Bayo Onanuga also reported that, in his closing remarks, President Tinubu commended the ECOWAS heads of state and government for spirited discussions throughout the summit. He noted that the collective resolve underscored their strength to address the region's pressing challenges. As we move forward to implement the outcomes of this summit, let us remain united in our determination and steadfast in our commitment to the principles that bind us together as a community. I call on all member states to redouble their efforts in ensuring that the decisions reached here translate into tangible benefits for our citizens, he said. The Nigerian leader encouraged the leaders to carry forward the optimism and the resolve that guided the deliberations. Together, let us continue to champion the cause of a peaceful, secure, and prosperous West Africa, to build ECOWAS as a community of peoples anchored on the ideals of freedom, justice, democracy, and a vision of good governance that addresses the legitimate aspirations of our people, he said. President Tinubu congratulated the outgoing chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, as he attended his valedictory session as AUC chair.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
South Korea President Yoon Suk-yeol has vowed to overturn his impeachment votes passed by lawmakers on Saturday evening, according to the Asia country local time. A parliamentary decision which suspended him from performing his duties as the country president, but he will remain in office as the nation's president until the Constitutional Court made of 6 judges, 4 of whom were appointed by Yoon, decide if the impeachment is lawfully acceptable or not. Yoon Suk-yeol was suspended from presidential duties at South Korea local time at 7:24 p.m. Saturday, according to local media. The impeachment case will proceed to the Constitutional Court for review, and according to local observers, there is still uncertainty regarding the result at the Constitutional Court, saying there are currently only 6 judges, 4 of whom were appointed by Yoon. South Korean lawmakers voted on Saturday after last Saturday insufficient votes to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol following a short-lived declaration of martial law last week Tuesday night. Yoon presidential powers are expectedly, according to the law, will be formally suspended once he is served with a copy of the impeachment resolution. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, appointed by Yoon in 2022, will take over as acting president while the country's constitutional court takes up the matter. Shortly after the parliamentary votes, Yoon, in a nationwide address, repeated his intention to fight the impeachment in the Constitutional Court, which will now decide whether to reinstate or formally remove him, a process that could take up to 6 months. I will never give up, he said in a televised address shortly after the vote. Reports and videos posted online showed inside the National Assembly with a loud cheers and gasps from lawmakers when the speaker announced that the votes in favor of impeachment had crossed the 200 needed to pass. The result indicated that 12 lawmakers from Yoon's party joined the opposition to impeach him. Earlier reports showed protests in full swing outside the National Assembly, with thousands kept coming but orderly carrying placards, and floor cushions were distributed with markings on the floor for where to sit. People streaming out of subway stations here and nearby. It feels like today's protest is their duty, one of the South Korean residents in Seoul stated in a tweet on X social media. The thousands of protesters gathered outside the assembly in frigid weather jumped up and down, and hugged or shook hands with some playing drums in celebration of the favored impeachment votes were announced. Outside the National Assembly, loud cheers washed over a large crowd of pro-impeachment protesters, some of whom had set up free coffee and food stalls for fellow participants. According to local observers, the Constitutional Court would have 180 days to rule on Yoon's future. If it backs his removal, Yoon would become the second president in South Korean history to be successfully impeached. A dozen members of Yoon's Conservative People Power Party joined opposition lawmakers to pass the threshold of 200 votes, which was 2/3 of the legislators required for his impeachment. The final vote was 204 to 85. This is a triumph of democracy and of the South Korean people, Park Chan-dae, the opposition party floor leader, said after the vote. The opposition leader, Lee Jae-myung, while addressing the crowd, noted that their fight was not over. "We've only just overcome a small mountain," Lee said. "There is a larger, steeper mountain ahead," Lee added. Han, the prime minister who will step in to perform presidential duties, was appointed by Yoon in 2022. On Saturday, Han said in a brief comment that his heart was heavy. "I will focus all my strength and effort on stably running the affairs of the state," he said. The National Assembly voted to impeach President Yoon, with 204 lawmakers in the 300-member House in favor and 85 against the motion. 3 refused to vote or decided to be neutral, while 8 votes were declared invalid. During the week, we had reported that South Korea Defense Minister Kim Yong-il, who is believed to have recommended hours-long martial law that turned the Asia country into political turmoil since last week Tuesday, have been arrested on Sunday after he had resigned last week, and others believed to be involved in the martial law decision have been placed on travel ban with the ruling People Power Party, PPP, saying the president, Yoon Suk-yeol, would no longer be able to travel or participate in foreign and domestic affairs until he resigned. Bae Sang-up, a Justice Ministry official, had told a parliamentary hearing that the South Korea Justice Ministry has banned President Yoon from leaving the country following requests by police, prosecutors and an anti-corruption agency as they expand their investigations into the circumstances surrounding Yoon's power grab. AP International News Agency reported that, while a sitting South Korean president has immunity from prosecution while in office, that doesn't extend to allegations of rebellion or treason. This means that Yoon can be questioned and detained by police over his martial law decree, but many observers doubt that police will forcefully detain him because of the potential for clashes with his presidential security service. They also say the security service won't likely permit searches of Yoon's office, citing a law that prohibits searches on sites with state secrets without approval from those in charge of those areas. In the case of former President Park Geun-hye, who was thrown out of office in 2017 after being impeached by parliament over a corruption scandal, prosecutors failed to search her office and ended up receiving documents outside the compound because presidential officials turned them away. After refusing to meet with prosecutors while in office, Park underwent questioning by them and was arrested after the Constitutional Court approved her impeachment and ruled to dismiss her as president in March 2017. Meanwhile, Reuters reported that South Korea's main opposition party said on Tuesday it would pass a government budget bill for 2025 that triggered President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law decree last week, at a plenary session scheduled to be held later in the day. The opposition-controlled parliament last month cut 4.1 trillion won from the government's proposed 677.4 trillion won, $473 billion budget. "We will pass the budget bill today," Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung said. "A swift passage of the bill will help resolve the current uneasiness and crisis." The government says the budget cut will paralyze basic government functions, hinder responses to external challenges and delay policy measures for small businesses and the vulnerable. President Yoon cited opposition obstructionism over government budgets as one justification for his martial law decree on December 3, which triggered a constitutional crisis in Asia's fourth largest economy. Senior Democratic Party lawmaker Park Chan-de said if the government needed money for spending for people's livelihoods, it can be solved later through an extra budget. Although Yoon narrowly avoided impeachment during a parliamentary vote on Saturday, local media reported that the president remains under intense scrutiny with investigations ongoing into allegations of insurrection and abuses of power, with several key allies also implicated. The Justice Ministry confirmed that former Defense Minister Kim Yong-ayan has been arrested and now in detention, and ex-Interior Minister Lee Sang-min are among those prohibited from traveling abroad. General Park And-soo, who led the martial law operation, and counterintelligence commander Yoon In-ayong have also been barred from leaving the country. Park faced further questioning on Monday as investigators ramped up their efforts to uncover details surrounding the failed imposition of martial law. Opposition leaders have decried Yoon's decision to transfer powers to his unelected Prime Minister and People Power Party (PPP) chief, labeling it a blatant constitutional violation. Democratic Party leader Park Chan-de accused Yoon of orchestrating a second insurrection by undermining South Korea's constitutional framework. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-ayan, who reportedly proposed the martial law declaration to Yoon, was arrested on Sunday. He had earlier resigned on Wednesday after apologizing and saying he would take full responsibility. Travel bans have been placed on Kim, Lee, Defense Counterintelligence Commander Yoon In-ayong, and Army Chief of Staff Park And-soo. Many others have stepped down from their political offices. These include former Interior Minister Lee Sang-min, who resigned on Sunday, saying he would take responsibility for failing to serve the public and the president well. Some had on Wednesday, which included senior aides of Yoon's office, including his chief of staff, tendered mass resignations hours after the martial law declaration was lifted. In a public address on Sunday, PPP leader Han Dong-hoon said Yoon will no longer be involved in foreign and domestic affairs until his early resignation, adding that Prime Minister Han Duck-soo would manage government affairs in the meantime. The president will not be involved in any state affairs including diplomacy before his exit, said party leader Han. Democratic Party floor leader Park Chan-de described the proposed plan as an illegal, unconstitutional second insurrection and a second coup. Representative Kim Min-seok of the Democratic Party similarly criticized the plan, saying, "Nobody gave PPP leader Han the power to make such decisions." The Prime Minister and the ruling party's announcement that they would jointly exercise the powers of the president, which no one has given them, is clearly unconstitutional, he said, according to a report on the Korea Herald. The Ministry of National Defense confirmed at a briefing on Monday that the president retains command of the armed forces. That means in the event of any foreign policy incidents, including any possible threat from North Korea, Yoon is still, in theory, able to make executive decisions, according to BBC. We had reported that lawmakers in South Korea on Saturday failed to carry out their planned impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol, who earlier in the week declared few-hours-long martial law, which was condemned and resisted by both the president's ruling political party, People Power Party, PPP, and the opposition Democratic Party, DP. But today, the PPP boycotted the impeachment process, with the party leader saying the president would resign. The impeachment process failed as many lawmakers refused to vote and the parliament could not gather enough votes required to impeach a president in South Korea. After the impeachment failed, the president's political party, PPP, said that it could not allow a repeat of the 2016 impeachment of the then-president Park Geun-hye, who left office after months of candlelit protests over an influence peddling scandal. Her downfall triggered the implosion of the party and a victory by liberals in presidential and general elections, according to Reuters. We cannot repeat the tragedy of paralysis of state affairs and suspension of constitutional government through the impeachment of the president, PPP spokesperson, Shindong UK said, adding that Yoon had apologized and had vowed to leave his future up to the party. Thousands of demonstrators holding candles and lights flooded the streets outside Parliament on Friday and Saturday nights, demanding Yoon's impeachment. At least 8 votes were needed from Yoon's PPP to reach the 2/3 majority needed to impeach the president. But PPP lawmakers departed after casting votes on a separate motion, even when some people shouted and cursed them. Only 3 lawmakers from Yoon's party voted in the impeachment process, according to Reuters. President Yoon had earlier on Saturday morning addressed the nation in a televised speech to apologize for the move, and said he would face whatever repercussions there would be, but he did not offer to resign. Yoon said he would put his fate in the hands of the PPP. I caused anxiety and inconvenience to the public. I sincerely apologize. I will leave it up to our party to stabilize the political situation in the future, including my term of office, Yoon said in a televised address. After the failed impeachment vote, PPP leader, Han Dong-hoon said the party had decided that Yoon would resign. The declaration of martial law was a clear and serious violation of the law, Han told reporters. Reuters reported that Han has a history of clashes with Yoon, but it was unclear if he was speaking for all PPP members. There was no word yet from Yoon on Han's comments. The People Power Party will pursue an orderly departure of the president in order to minimize confusion for the people, Han said, adding that until Yoon leaves, he would be effectively excluded from his duties, and the Prime Minister will consult with the party to manage state affairs, Han said. National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik appealed for the PPP lawmakers to return to their seats during the impeachment voting process but to no avail. The opposition needed at least 8 votes from the PPP but only 3 of them voted as at 8 p.m. South Korea local time. We had reported that lawmakers in South Korea on Wednesday submitted a bill for the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol for declaring martial law on Tuesday night, invading National Assembly complex with masked martial law military troops to stop rapes from overturning or overruling the declaration. But the ruling People Power Party, PPP, held an emergency meeting later on Wednesday and resolved to unite and stand as huddle against the call for Yoon's impeachment. Local media reported that the decision to stand as huddle to the opposition party's lawmakers' impeachment notice against Yoon was made at a meeting of the ruling PPP lawmakers, who endorsed the party's position of opposing President Yoon's impeachment, according to Seoul-based Yonhap News Media. According to local media, Yoon had earlier met with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and other PPP leaders on Wednesday to discuss future strategy after opposition parties filed an impeachment motion in response to the brief martial law declaration late Tuesday evening and Wednesday early morning night. Political observers in South Korea said that the impeachment motion must receive a 2/3 majority in parliament to be approved. The opposition will need 8 votes from ruling party lawmakers out of the 300 lawmakers in the National Assembly to pass the bill. Yoon's declaration of martial law is a clear violation of the Constitution, the Democrats' party wrote in a resolution seeking Yoon's impeachment, according to the South Korean news agency, Yonhap. This is a serious act of rebellion and a perfect reason for impeachment, the Democrats stated. For the impeachment to take effect, lawmakers now have 24 to 72 hours to vote on whether to oust the president. Notably, no PPP lawmakers supported the impeachment motion, though the head of the party expressed exasperation with the martial law decree on Tuesday. According to Yonhap, given the current makeup of the assembly, 8 PPP lawmakers would have to defect to give the motion the 2/3 majority it requires to remove Yoon. Reuters through its Facebook page showed a live broadcast view of South Korea's parliament after South Korean lawmakers submitted the bill to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol. CNN also identified a woman in a video that has gone viral as an GWI Ryung, a journalist turned lawmaker scuffling with an armed soldier outside South Korea's parliament building during the political turmoil on Wednesday early morning night, and is the spokesperson for the main opposition Democratic Party and former anchor on broadcaster YTN. It would be recalled that parliament members in South Korea battled soldiers to get inside their building at 1 a.m. after the country's president declared emergency martial law, blaming Democratic opponents for bringing his conservative government to a standstill and, without proof, colluding with North Korea. Lawmakers blocked the president's declaration unanimously with 190 votes to 0. For the parliament members who were able to force their way into the National Assembly hall midnight. President Yoon, elected in a bitterly fought election in 2022, declared martial law on television on Tuesday night, a widely unexpected move that shocked the nation and international observers. Yoon argued that legislative obstruction by the opposition Democratic Party had turned the National Assembly into a den of criminals and necessitated military action. I declare martial law to protect the Republic of Korea from the threats of North Korean Communist forces. To immediately eradicate the unscrupulous pro-Pyongyang anti-state forces that pillage the freedom and happiness of our people and to protect free constitutional order, Yoon stated during the declaration on Tuesday night on national television. The Democratic Party-controlled National Assembly rapidly sprung into action, flooding into legislative chambers while blocking heavily armed soldiers who have stated that, under martial law, political assemblies were illegal. The Democrats have controlled the assembly since April, when they won regional elections against the Conservatives in a landslide. Protesters had flooded streets, demanding President Yoon Suk-yeol's resignation after a long night of military and civilian show of force in South Korea from 11 p.m. on Tuesday night and almost throughout entire early morning night of Wednesday, when 190 lawmakers from opposition political party, including 18 from the president political party, jumped fences to convey important and urgent parliamentary meeting after President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law in the country and ordered masked martial law troops with rifles to invade the National Assembly of the fourth Asia's largest economic country to stop the lawmakers. But the soldiers met a stiffer civilian barricades who engaged the soldiers with fire extinguishers at the National Assembly complex and held them back until the lawmakers successfully held the plenary session and voted to outlaw the president's martial law declaration. Videos posted online showed thousands of South Korean protesters held a candlelight vigil and rally in downtown Seoul streets against President Yoon Suk-yeol, who has been in office since 2022, to resign. Protesters held up signs that read, "Step down President Yoon Suk-yeol," as people and lawmakers attend a rally in Seoul, the South Korea capital, according to Reuters. International news agency. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol had on Tuesday declared martial law, vowing to eradicate shameless pro-North Korean anti-state forces and restore order. Martial law was last declared in the country in 1979. Soon after the declaration, protests broke out in Seoul and thousands gathered at the National Assembly with South Korea's main opposition party lawmakers, and some ruling party lawmakers jumped fences and tussled with security forces so they could vote to overturn the law. According to Reuters, thousands of demonstrators gathered outside the parliament where there were minor clashes with police and military. Lawmakers gathered to vote against martial law, as both opposition lawmakers and leaders of Yoon's own party decried it as unconstitutional. All 190 of the lawmakers present voted to lift martial law, including 18 from Yoon's own party. Yoon ordered troops to pull back and later lifted the decree after convening a cabinet meeting. 190 of the National Assembly's 300 members defied police and military cordons to vote against the declaration, forcing Yoon to lift the martial law order. The move late on Tuesday shocked South Koreans, with Yoon calling in the military, which released a decree banning protests and activity by parliament and political parties, and placing media under government control, according to Reuters. The international news agency added that the military named Army Chief of Staff, General Park An-soo, a 4-star general, to head a martial law command and released the decree effective at 11 p.m. on Tuesday. Besides banning political activity and restricting the media, the decree also ordered striking doctors back to work. Those who violate martial law could be arrested without a warrant, it said. Masked martial law troops equipped with rifles, body armor and night vision equipment entered the National Assembly, where the first of with staffers who opposed them with fire extinguishers. Secretary General of South Korea's National Assembly, Kim Min-ki, condemned the military on Wednesday morning for breaking into the legislature during President Yoon Suk-yeol's brief imposition of martial law, saying that nearly 300 troops had stormed the compound. Kim Min-ki said at a news briefing that, "I strongly condemn the illegal, unconstitutional actions of the military and the destruction it caused at the National Assembly premises due to President Yoon's decree of martial law." He vowed to seek legal remedies for the damage caused, and he said the police, who prevented some lawmakers from entering the building overnight, would be barred from the premises. Kim offered the most detailed official account yet of the military's incursion, saying, about 230 troops were flown by helicopter onto the assembly grounds, and roughly 50 others jumped fences to gain entry, he said. Kim played closed-circuit footage of soldiers entering the compound at the news briefing, saying that all such video would soon be made public.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Kyiv on Saturday in Paris hints United States of America, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump that Ukraine needed just and enduring peace, that Russians under the leadership of President Vladimir Putin can't destroy in few years, with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also stating how Russia is trying to subjugate Georgia after many wars against the country. Zelensky stated this in a statement issued last Sunday, giving out brief report of the outcome from the meeting he had with the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace during the Notre Dame Cathedral's reopening ceremony of the church building that caught fire in 2019. Yesterday, I visited President Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace and had a good meeting with President Donald Trump. We discussed important issues on the battlefield and in the global situation, from our front lines to North Korea. I stated that we need a just and enduring peace, one that the Russians will not be able to destroy in a few years, as they have done repeatedly in the past. This is clear not only for our country and region. We see how Russia is now trying to subjugate Georgia after several wars against that country. Russia still does not want to ease its grip on Moldova. Now the Russians are retreating from Syria, but that does not mean they will not try to sow death there again. Russian military presence is also active in Africa, with the sole purpose of destabilization. Therefore, when we talk about effective peace with Russia, we must first and foremost talk about effective guarantees for peace. Ukrainians want peace more than anyone else. Russia brought war to our land, and it is Russia that most seeks to disrupt the possibility of peace. Updated data on Russian losses show over 750,000 casualties, including 198,000 killed and more than 550,000 wounded. Our people are defending their homes at the cost of their lives, and every life of our soldiers and our civilians is precious to us. Since the start of the full-scale war, Ukraine has lost 43,000 soldiers killed in action on the battlefield. There have been 370,000 cases of medical assistance for the wounded. It also needs to be mentioned that in our army approximately half of the soldiers wounded in action are later returning to the battlefield, and that our data also includes light or repeat injuries. One of the key distinctions between the Russian army and Ukraine's defense forces is the level of frontline medicine, which is significantly higher in our forces. We are deeply grateful to everyone who supports its development, saves our wounded in action, and facilitates their rehabilitation. Since September this year, Russia has been losing troops on the battlefield at a ratio of 5:1, or even 6:1, compared to us. They want to seize more land before global pressure on them becomes unbearable. Additionally, we must not forget our people in Russian captivity, thousands of both military personnel and civilians, some of whom have been held since 2014, when the occupation began. Since February 24, 2022, we have already managed to bring 3,935 of our people home, 3,767 soldiers and 168 civilians. But we must bring everyone back, and much work remains to be done. We must also establish the truth about all our people who are missing. We must also remember the Ukrainian children deported by Russia. Russians themselves admit that these abducted children number in the hundreds of thousands, dispersed across their territory. Returning them is the most challenging task. On the occupied territories of Ukraine, at least several million people remain. This is the reality of this war. It cannot simply end with a piece of paper and a few signatures. A ceasefire without guarantees can be reignited at any moment, as Putin has already done before. To ensure that Ukrainians no longer suffer losses, we must guarantee the reliability of peace and not turn a blind eye to occupation. We know Putin very well. He is addicted to war. He began his career with a brutal war against Chechnya and has been constantly fueling other wars. He can only be stopped by strength, the strength of world leaders who can become leaders of peace. We count on America and the entire world to help stop Putin. The only things he fears are America and global unity. It is precisely such peace through strength that we discuss with all our partners, as well as the steps and guarantees needed for the people and the state attacked by Russia. War cannot be endless, only peace must be permanent and reliable. After meeting with the President of Georgia in Paris, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he expressed Ukraine's full support and solidarity with the Georgian people, who are fighting for their dignified future, and emphasized that respecting the will of the Georgian people and preventing Ivanishvili's government from surrendering the country to Putin is essential for the stability and future of the region. For Russia, this is not just about Georgia, it is about control of the Black Sea region, a strategic Russian goal that poses a threat to the national security of everyone in the region and across Europe. I assured President Zorabishvili that Ukraine will coordinate with partners, not just in Europe but globally, to deliver a systemic response and support the Georgian people in defending their rights to live freely and independently. Reacting to last weekend attacks in Ukraine, Zelensky said, Russia's words mean nothing, but their bombs and missiles speak false. On the evening of St. Nicholas Day, aerial bombs in Zaporizhia hit a service station directly, cars with people inside. As of now, 4 people are known to be wounded and are receiving medical assistance. Tragically, the list of fatalities includes 9 names. In Kryvyi Rih, a missile strike targeted an ordinary city building, injuring 17 people and killing 2. And these are just 2 Russian attacks on 2 Ukrainian cities in a single day. Thousands of such strikes Russia has carried out during this war make it absolutely clear. Putin does not seek real peace. He seeks the ability to treat any country this way, with bombs, missiles, and all other forms of violence. Only through strength can we resist this, and only through strength can real peace be established. I thank everyone who is supporting Ukraine's efforts. May the memory of all the victims of Russian terror be eternal. Ahmed died. I congratulated the young patients on St. Nicholas Day, spoke with the children, their parents and doctors. This war has brought so many things into our children's lives that should never be part of childhood. Yet, despite it all, They remain children, and we must do everything to ensure they have a happy and safe childhood. We are proud of our children and everyone who fights and works for their future. On Friday, Zelensky in a video press release said Russia tried to overrun Ukraine's air defense system yesterday morning. Today, Russia attempted to overload our air defense systems, as they always do during such massive attacks. This time, they deliberately waited for freezing weather to strike, aiming to make life even harder for people. The attack coincided with a cold snap, a deliberate, cynical act of terror against people. Every missile was directed at energy infrastructure, but thanks to the accuracy of our defenders and the reliability of our air defense systems, many lives were saved. Each time Russia launches new strikes against our country, it underscores an objective need. Steps that show Putin his terror will not succeed. Instead of seeking ways to end the war, he uses missiles. It is war and intimidation that keep the Russian throne under this person. However, our partners should not be concerned with how to ensure the stability of such figures in Moscow. Instead, they should focus on guaranteeing stability for themselves and the world, stability and security that are only possible through peace. I am deeply grateful to everyone who helps us bring peace closer, he said.
Osasua Connedio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.